Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin the council session today, I would like to make the following announcement. Due to the continuing threat to public health from COVID-19, City Council is currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make this remote meeting possible. Instructions for how the public may view the meeting and offer public comment are included in the stated meeting notice that was published in the Daily News, the Inquirer, the Legal Intelligencer prior to the meeting, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I will now note that the hour has come. Mr. Decker, I'm going to ask the clerk, please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance, say a couple of words to make sure that your image is displayed on the screen. Mr. Decker, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues, and the Philadelphia viewing public. Good morning, everyone.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, Council President and colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman Dom.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues, present.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues in Philadelphia, present.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gilmer Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilman Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. And on this first Thursday of Council in the month of March, to the city of sisterly effectiveness and brotherly love.
Good morning. Absolutely.
Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilman Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Sending prayers out to all the families who have lost loved ones to senseless gun violence.
Good morning.
Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, viewing public. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Parker.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues in Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman Squilla.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Good morning.
Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the public. I'm present.
Good morning.
Council President Clark.
And good morning to all. Thank you all for being here. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Father Bill Waters of St. Augustine Roman Catholic Church. He is here today as the guest of Councilman Squilla. I would ask all members and guests to please bow your head for the invocation.
Almighty and eternal God, you revealed your glory to all nations. God of power and might, wisdom and justice, through you, authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, judgment is decreed. Assist with your spirit of counsel and fortitude the members of the Philadelphia City Council, that their affairs may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to the people of Philadelphia. May they encourage due respect for virtue and religion. May they execute the laws with justice and mercy. May they seek to restrain crime, vice, and immorality. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct the deliberations of the City Council. May they seek to preserve peace, continue to bring us the blessings of liberty and equality. We pray that the members of the Philadelphia City Council who are entrusted to guard our political welfare may be enabled by your powerful protection to discharge their duties with honesty and ability. We likewise commend to your unbounded mercy all the citizens of Philadelphia, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your holy law. Loving God, in a very special way this morning, we pray for the people of Ukraine. We pray for all those who are making decisions concerning this war. We pray that their decisions may be made in a way that brings about peace and respect the lives and dignity of all involved. Loving God, as we celebrate today the feast of one of our own Philadelphians, Mother Catherine Drexel, the second American-born saint to be canonized, is from Philadelphia. We pray that through her intercession, there may be a decrease in the crime of the city of Philadelphia. We pray that through her intercession, we may all become more attentive and responsive, as she was, to the needs of the homeless and those marginalized in the city. In conclusion, Lord, we pray in thanksgiving that the members of the Philadelphia City Council are willing to be of service to us. We pray in thanksgiving for their sacrifice that they make so generously and selflessly, being public servants. Pray that all of their decisions be for the common good. Their decisions will respect the life and dignity of each citizen of the city of Philadelphia. We bring all of this to you, to our Lord and God, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Father. We really appreciate you being here today. Thank you for your invocation.
Thank you, and thank you for wanting to have the sense of God's presence here at the meeting. That's tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 24th, 2022. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 24th, 2022 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 24th, 2022 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and our journal is approved. And our next order of business is the request for leave of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Chair thanks to Councilwoman. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion concerning certain legislative matters that may arise during the course of today's session of council and that were not listed on the calendar circulated prior to today's session.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that any of the following matters, if considered today, may be added to the agenda for this session of council and, as required by law, subsequently published on an amended agenda after the consideration of those matters. Resolutions authorizing hearings, amendments to bills on first reading, the reconsideration of a bill vetoed by or recalled from the mayor, resolutions taking substantive action to be voted on in this session, a motion to withdraw a bill or resolution that is not on the calendar, and a motion placing a bill or resolution on or returning a bill or resolution from the suspension calendar that is not listed on today's calendar. The purpose of this motion is to provide the public with notice concerning possible actions by council that arose too late to be included on the calendar that was published prior to today's session.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the legislative matters stated by Councilwoman Parker may be added to the agenda for today should those matters arise during the course of this council session. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and the motion carries. And our next order of business is communication. And I would ask the clerk to please read the messages from the mayor and any additional communication that he may have in his possession.
From the mayor to the president and members of the council of the city of Philadelphia, pursuant to sections 4604 and 2307 of the Home Rule Charter, I am today transmitting to the council the recommendation of the City Planning Commission on the following bills. Bill numbers 220005 and 220052. And I am pleased to advise you that on February 25, 2022, I signed the following bills, which were passed by council at a session on February 24, 2022. Bill numbers 220001, 220002, and 220077. And I am transmitting for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to assign 2032 East Lehigh Avenue, located in the 1st Councilmanic District, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying Title II 2609 through 27 Sears Street, 3014 through 26 Wharton Street, and 1308 through 14 South 26th Street, located in the 2nd Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to various properties located in the 3rd Councilmanic District, including on the following streets: Brandywine Street, Olive Street, Mellon Street, North Shedwick Street, Wallace Street, North 33rd Street, and North 35th Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to various properties located in the 5th Councilmanic District, including on the following streets: Monument Street, North Sydenham Street, and North 31st Street. And a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Department of Aviation, to transfer the functions of certain city agencies with respect to the operations of the city's airports to the newly created department, and to provide for additional duties of the department. And an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the city of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Department of Aviation, to transfer the functions of certain city agencies with respect to the operations of the city's airports to the newly created department, and to provide for additional duties of the department, as approved by resolution of the City Council, fixing the date of a special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot question to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election. And an ordinance amending section 11505 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Paving and Other Improvements by Property Owners, to authorize the Streets Department to collect fees for costs incurred in reviewing plans for and constructing ADA-compliant sidewalks, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Appreciate it. And our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. And by way of a reminder, we're asking that all resolutions, including privilege resolutions, be placed on the final passage calendar for the next session of council unless they're being referred to committee. In our current remote environment, this procedure will provide an appropriate opportunity for the public comment. I'd like to thank you in advance for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, please read the titles of the legislation that is being offered today by.
Yes, Mr. President. Councilwoman Parker offers one bill and three resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, an ordinance amending Chapter 21-1100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Community Development, by adding new provisions related to workforce housing programs, amending the applicability period, and making other technical changes.
For the committee.
And on her own behalf, a resolution congratulating Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson on her historic nomination to the Supreme Court of the United States and urging the U.S. Senate to confirm her nomination.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution commending the City of Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement for their prudent actions over the years to increase the pension fund's actuarial funding ratio.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution calling on Mayor James F. Kenney and his administration to conduct an annual review of how the city's elimination of the Rule of Two has impacted workforce diversity in both hiring and promotion.
Next week's calendar.
Mr. President, Councilwoman Parker would like to be recognized on these bills and resolutions.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for all her resolutions that she introduced today.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President. First, on Ketanji Brown Jackson on being nominated to the Supreme Court. It is a high honor to congratulate Ketanji Brown Jackson on being nominated to the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court. One of my favorite rulings of hers, Mr. President, is the 2018 American Federation of Government Employees, the AFL-CIO ruling, where Jackson invalidated provisions of 3 executive orders that would have limited the time federal employee labor union officials could spend with union members, the issues that unions could bargain over in negotiations, and the rights of disciplined workers to appeal disciplinary actions. Judge Jackson concluded that the executive orders violated the right of federal employees to collectively bargain and guaranteed by the Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statute. Judge Jackson is the real deal. She is the most qualified person for the job. She attended Harvard and Harvard Law and was the editor of the Harvard Law Review. She has come up through the ranks and would be the first justice who has served as a public defender. Even more notable, if confirmed, she will be the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court, and it's about time we had such representation in such an esteemed position. The Philadelphia City Council congratulates her on her nomination and, of course, urges a speedy confirmation. Want to note for the record, Mr. President, that this resolution is sponsored by all of the women of council: Gaultier, Sanchez, Bass, Brooks, Gilmore, Richardson, and Gim, yourself, Mr. President, and council members Squilla, Johnson, Jones, O'Neill, Dom, Green, and Thomas. Thank you, colleagues. Next, Mr. President, is the rule of two. In November of 2021, a majority of the voters in Philadelphia voted to eliminate the rule of two. Now, data shows that standardized testing of all kinds is skewed out to favor for test takers of diverse backgrounds. That is why I introduced the ballot question to eliminate the rule of two, which stated that for city hiring and promotions, HR managers can only choose from the first or second top scoring candidates. The rule of two practice did not take into account a person's years of experience, their expertise, their training, or their passion for their role. Other cities don't use the rule of two. In the 2017 comparison with 35 other peer cities, it was found that no other municipality adhered to a rule of two. All had more expansive rules like a rule of 5 or a rule of 10. And approximately 20% used the varying rule, which is what Philadelphia chose to do by eliminating the rule of two. Eliminating the rule of two will help correct a barrier that prevented many Black and brown and women civil service workers from being hired or moving up the chain as it relates to city jobs. However, what we do need to do now is analyze the data around the new hiring and promotion processes and see, let's measure whether or not they are working. So this is why today, Mr. President, I've introduced this resolution calling on Mayor Kinney and his administration to conduct an annual review of how the city's elimination of the rule of two has impacted workforce diversity in both hiring and promotions. With this resolution, I am asking the administration to run a report on the numbers. They should tell us how many people of color and women were hired since the rule of two was eliminated. How many employees of color and women were promoted since the rule of two was eliminated? And how do these figures compare to when the rule of two was still in place? Finally, are there any adjustments that need to be made to help level the playing field when it comes to putting the right people in positions regardless of their standardized test-taking skills? While we know it is our duty to combat institutional racism wherever it occurs, and I've heard from multiple people, they've demanded as chair of Council's Committee on Labor and Civil Service that they want a city government that is reflective of the population and they want fairness in pay. Let's prove to them that eliminating the rule of two is a step towards equity. Now, Mr. President, the final resolution of the pension board. A 29% return in FY21, an actuarial funding ratio increase from 44.8% in 2016 to 55.2% for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. A market value funding ratio to 61.1%. That's how much it increased. The highest market value for the pension fund in over 20 years. A reduction in investment fees, saving over $90 million. Long-term stability. The 2020 Government Finance Officers Association Award for Excellence. And they're on track to reach 80% funding by 2028 and 100% funding by 2031. The pension fund has achieved all of this because of the leadership of the City of Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement, along with the combined efforts, truly an intergovernmental effort. The city administration, Philadelphia municipal unions, our city council, Mr. President, under your leadership, and the state legislature, some members who are no longer elected, and all other interested parties. This is why today I am proud to have introduced a resolution commending the City of Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement for their prudent actions over the years to increase the pension fund's actuarial funding ratio. For the record of Philadelphia, this resolution is co-sponsored by our Council President Darrell Clark and Council members Squilla, Johnson, Jones, Bass, O'Neill, Brooks, Dom, Gilmore, Richardson, Green, Gim, and Thomas. According to the Pew's Charitable Trust in 2019, the collaborative efforts to shore up our pension fund have proved that improved funding of a municipal pension system is attainable. These extraordinary and prudent efforts benefit city retirees, current city workers, taxpayers, and the city's operating budget, and it will likely improve the city's credit rating. I want to give some credit to some folks. Fran Bielli and James C. I called you that because I didn't want to chop up your name, James. Treasurer Jackie Dunn, Rob Dubois, Roosevelt Popular, Tumar Alexander, Diana Cortez, Rebecca Reinhardt, Carl Stokes Bailiff, the first Black woman to ever be elected vice chair of that board. Brian Coughlin, Paul Reed, Mike Zaccagni, Sade, who's no longer here, Matt Stitt, who's no longer here, and Bob McDermott. Special thank you to each of you and our workers. Thank you for your measured actions over the years that have led to this outstanding result. You all are to be commended and applauded. Our pension fund used to be attacked, people claiming that it was mismanaged, but we showed that we could take care of ourselves, do the right thing, and preserve retirement security for municipal workers. And for that, we should all be proud. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. A lot of work. Good work. Next week's calendar. Mr. Decker, next.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers two resolutions entitled a resolution celebrating author Molly Elkman and her children's book, The House That She Built, on the occasion of Women's History Month.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing and supporting the accomplishments of women and girls throughout history on the occasion of Women's History Month.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Jones offers one resolution entitled a resolution recognizing and honoring Dr. Edie Miller Ellis for her unwavering commitment to the advancement of careers and goals of women and minorities in the field of medicine.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers one bill and three resolutions. On behalf of Council President, an ordinance providing for the submission of the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Department of Aviation to transfer the functions of certain city agencies with respect to the operations of the city's airports and to the newly constructed department and to provide for additional duties of the department.
For the committee.
Also on behalf of the Council President, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Department of Aviation to transfer the functions of certain city agencies with respect to the operations of the city airports to the newly created department and to provide for additional duties of the department.
For the committee.
On his own behalf, Councilman Johnson offers a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying Title II, 2609 through 27 Sears Street, 3014 through 26 Wharton Street, and 1308 through 14 South 26th Street, located in the 2nd Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring Reuben Jones, Executive Director of Frontline Dads, for his dedicated leadership in promoting public safety and justice reform in Philadelphia.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Green offers a resolution calling upon the Pennsylvania General Assembly and Governor Tom Wolf to raise or remove the cap on the amount of tax credits available under the Film Production Tax Credit Program.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Brooks offers one resolution entitled a resolution honoring and commending the life and memory of Jennifer Benich and the impact of her housing activism on the city of Philadelphia.
Next week's calendar.
And that resolution was on behalf of Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Decker.
Councilman Dom offers a resolution honoring and congratulating Drexel University President John Fry on his 2021 receipt of the William Penn Award from the Greater Philadelphia Area Chamber of Commerce and for his many contributions to Drexel University, the local community, and the entire Philadelphia region.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Well, thank you, Council President. I'd like to congratulate today Drexel President John Fry on being selected for the William Penn Award by the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. The William Penn Award is the highest honor bestowed upon a business executive in Greater Philadelphia, and it's been awarded annually since 1949, and recipients are chosen for their significant contributions to the business and civic advancement of the region, their professional accomplishments, their leadership experience, and their commitment to charity as well as to the community. John Fry has certainly helped our city and region thrive over this time he's been here. I'd like to thank my co-sponsors, council members Gautier, Parker, Quinona Sanchez, Jones, Squilla, Gilmore Richardson, Green, Bass, and Thomas. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. That will be on next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Gautier offers one bill and one resolution. Entitled an ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan Number 269 and abandonment of a portion of a certain right-of-way for drainage purposes and water main purposes in the vicinity of the northwesterly side of Civic Center Boulevard, northeast of Osler Circle.
Further committee.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to various properties located in the 3rd Councilmanic District, including on the following streets: Brandywine Street, Olive Street, Mellon Street, North Shedwick Street, Wallace Street, North 33rd Street, and North 35th Street.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Thomas offers one bill and one resolution. On behalf of Council President Clark, an ordinance amending Section 11505 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Paving and Other Improvements by Property Owners to authorize the Streets Department to collect fees for costs incurred in reviewing plans for and constructing ADA-compliant sidewalks.
Further committee.
And on his own behalf, Councilman Thomas offers a resolution honoring and congratulating Champion of the Week, NBC 10's Miguel Martinez Valle and Augustine Conte III for representing Philadelphia in Beijing as the only Philadelphian reporters and photojournalists to cover the 2022 Winter Olympics.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman O'Neill offers one bill entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 10700 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Refuse and Littering by revising the annual fee for neighborhood sanitation and cleaning services and exempting owner-occupied duplexes from the annual neighborhood sanitation and cleaning services fee requirements.
Further committee.
Councilman Squilla offers one resolution entitled a resolution authorizing the conveyance of an interest in and the assignment of the redevelopment agreement for 2032 Lehigh Avenue located in the 1st Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Bass offers one resolution entitled a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2919 North 23rd Street located in the 8th Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman O offers four resolutions entitled a resolution recognizing Darrell K. Choate Sr. for his ongoing success and contributions in the fields of business and community development as CEO of the Choate's family of companies.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Streets and Services and Committee on Global Opportunities and the Creative Innovative Economy to hold hearings on the administration's plan for public electric vehicle charging.
Today's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing and commemorating the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines with the theme Gifted to Give.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution calling on the city of Philadelphia to terminate all contracts and financial ties with Russian businesses and investments.
Next week's calendar.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered today by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes the introduction of bills and resolutions by our members. And our next order of business is reports from committee. And the chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a report from the Committee on Rules.
Council President, the Committee on Rules reports 5 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Please read the report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Rules, to which is referred Bill number 210807, entitled an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Penn Street, Morris Street, Calder Street, and Priscilla Street. And Bill number 210829, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by amending certain provisions of Section 14502, entitled CTR Center City Overlay District, to create a new sub-area of the Old City Residential District. And Bill number 210957, entitled an ordinance to approve amendments to the University of Pennsylvania Master Plan in the area bounded by Walnut Street, 34th Street, Spruce Street, and 40th Street, related to the Graduate School of Education building at 3700 Walnut Street. And Bill number 220005, entitled an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Girard Avenue, 54th Street, Westminster Avenue, Haverford Avenue, and 56th Street. And Bill number 220076, entitled an ordinance authorizing the Philadelphia Housing Authority to acquire fee simple title to certain properties located in the vicinity of 9th Street to the east, 11th Street to the west, Cumberland Street to the north, and Susquehanna Avenue to the south. Respectfully reports it as considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210807, 210829, 210957, 220005, and 220076.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210807, 210829, 210957, 220005, and 220076. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. And these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilman Green for a report from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Council President. The Committee on Finance reports out two bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the report.
The Committee on Finance, to which is referred Bill number 210827, entitled an ordinance authorizing an increase in the non-electoral indebtedness of the city within the Pennsylvania constitutional limit, authorizing the bond committee to sell bonds at public or private negotiated sale, to provide funds toward various capital municipal purposes, providing for appropriations to the Sinking Fund Commission for the payment of such bonds, and authorizing agreements to provide credit or payment liquidity sources for the bonds in connection with issuance of the bonds. And Bill number 220116, entitled an ordinance approving the amendment to the fiscal year 2022 capital budget, providing for expenditures for the capital purposes of the Philadelphia Gas Works, including the supplying of funds in connection therewith, subject to certain constraints and conditions, and acknowledging the receipt of the revised forecast of capital budgets for fiscal years 2023 through 2027 as amended. Respectfully reports it as considered and amended the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this day of bill numbers 210827 and 220116.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210827, 220116. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez for a report from the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Appropriations reports one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Appropriations, to which is referred Bill number 220114, entitled an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2022 from the General Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, and the Grants Revenue Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, to the General Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, the Water Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, and the Aviation Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions. Respectfully reports it as considered and amended the same and returns the attached bill to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Winona Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of bill number 220114.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 220114. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and this bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilman Thomas for a report from the Committee on Streets and Services.
Thank you, Council President. The Committee on Streets and Services reports out 17 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Wow. Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Streets and Services, to which is referred Bill Number 210478, entitled An Ordinance Establishing the Parking Regulation in the Vicinity of Fraser Street and Spruce Street, Ludlow Street and South 58th Street, Udall Street and Larchwood Avenue, Reinhardt Street and South 47th Street, South 48th Street and Reinhardt Street, Bering Street and North 32nd Street, Brandywine Street and North 34th Street, Hamilton Street and North 35th Street, Haverford Avenue and North 32nd Street, Haverford Avenue and North 40th Street, Wallace Street and North 33rd Street, Mandela Way and North 46th Street, Mount Vernon Street and North 33rd Street, Preston Street and Bering Street, St. Malachy's Way and North 46th Street, Spring Garden Street and North 40th Street, North 31st Street and Hamilton Street, Sansom Street and South 49th Street, South 61st Street and Walnut Street, Irving Street and South 51st Street, Ruby Street and Market Street, Pine Street and South 46th Street, Mount Vernon Street and North 32nd Street, North 42nd Street and Bering Street, and State Street and Powelton Avenue. And Bill Number 210800, entitled An Ordinance Amending Title 12 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Parking Regulations and Penalties, to add a new section entitled Parking for Qualified School Employees, to provide parking for certain school employees at certain locations. And Bill Number 210801, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 2 of an Ordinance, Bill Number 170002, approved May 22nd, 2017, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Revision of Lines of Grades on a portion of City Plan Number 269 by relocating the easterly house line of University Avenue from a point approximately 545 feet north of Curie Boulevard to a point approximately 236 feet further northwardly therefrom. And Bill Number 210804, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Mentor Street and Windrum Avenue, Pelham Road and Mower Street. And Bill Number 210805, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Suller Street and North 2nd Street, Ashdale Street and North 4th Street, Rittenhouse Street to Wissahickon Street. And Bill Number 210806, entitled An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Tioga Street and North 15th Street. And Bill Number 210828, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 2 of an Ordinance, Bill Number 170086, approved May 22, 2017, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Revision of Lines and Grades on a portion of City Plan Number 269 by relocating portions of the house lines and curb lines of Convention Avenue from 34th Street to Health Sciences Drive by extending the period of compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein. And Bill Number 210927, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Designation of Bicycle Lanes, to authorize a bicycle lane in the eastbound direction on Chestnut Street from South 63rd Street to South 45th Street, and to remove a travel lane on Chestnut Street within the same limits. And Bill Number 210955, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a No Truck Parking Regulation on both sides of North Daggett Street from Callowhill Street to Vine Street. And Bill Number 211019, entitled An Ordinance Establishing No Truck or Trailer Parking Regulations on North 60th Street between West Oxford Street and Clifford Terrace, both sides, North 61st Street between West Oxford Street and Clifford Terrace, both sides, and West Columbia Avenue between North 60th Street and North 61st Street, both sides. And Bill Number 220045, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a No Truck Parking Regulation on both sides of Overbrook Avenue from 64th Street to 66th Street. And Bill Number 220053, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a No Truck Parking Regulation on Horning Road from Roosevelt Boulevard to its terminus, further northwestwardly therefrom. And Bill Number 220111, entitled An Ordinance Amending Section 9215 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Street Routes, to revise and add additional permitted locations. And Bill number 220119, entitled an ordinance authorizing an existing bulk window at 2519 Frankfurt Avenue. And Bill number 220143, entitled an ordinance amending section 9215 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Streeteries, to add additional permitted locations. And Bill number 220144, entitled an ordinance amending Title 9 of the Philadelphia Code by amending section 9205 relating to street vendors by prohibiting street vending on certain portions of Market Street. And Bill number 220145, entitled an ordinance amending section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Designation of Bicycle Lanes to authorize a bicycle lane on West Market Street from 34th Street to 30th Street and making associated changes to parking regulations within the same limits. Respectfully reports it as considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as so to permit the first reading this day of the 17 bills that were just read into the record by the clerk.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and probably second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of the 17 bills that were just read by the clerk. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our reports from committee, and our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that the bills just reported from committee with the suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading, and it will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar for the next session of council. As there are no additional bills on the first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion concerning the resolutions on the final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the use of a consent agenda to consider the following resolutions on the final passage calendar. They are resolution numbers 220169, 220170, 220171, 220172, 220173, 220174, 220175, 220176, 220177, 220180, 220181, 220182, 220183, and 220184.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and second that the rules of council be suspended to permit the use of a consent agenda that's considered the resolution just read by Councilwoman Parker. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries, and we will consider the resolution consent agenda shortly. The chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions on the regular second reading and final passage calendar today.
Thank you again, Mr. President. In addition to the resolutions being considered on the consent agenda, the following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 220178, 210956A, and 220051A. All other bills and resolutions being held, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Our next order of business is our public comment. Before we proceed with the consideration of our public comment, we're going to take a brief 5 to 10 minute break to allow our technology professionals an opportunity to connect our speakers for today, public comment session. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Good morning again, everyone, and thank you so very much for your patience. Before we proceed with our public comment period, the chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want, for the record, want to be recorded as voting aye on all bills and resolutions. I know there's a long list of people who will be speaking, and I might not be here at the end. So, for the record, can I please be noted as voting aye on all bills and resolutions? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Squilla. Whenever you have to depart, leave is granted, and the record will reflect that you have voted aye on all bills and resolutions. Thank you. Now that everyone is connected to the meeting, and before considering the resolutions and bills we have before us today, we will consider public comment as follows. Public comment must concern matters on the second reading and final passage calendars for possible action at a session of council. A speaker of any of those matters must sign up in order to testify. You must call 215-686-3406 by 3 p.m. the day before the session to sign up for public comment. When you call, we will take your name, phone number, the number of the legislative item you are commenting on, and whether you are in support of or against the legislation, and then add you to the list. We will telephone each person on the list during the council session and invite them to our remote meeting. Under ideal circumstances, they will each have 3 minutes to speak. However, this time limit may vary from session to session. Today, the time limit will be 2 minutes. In order to be fair to all those wishing to speak, I intend to hold faithfully to the established time limit. Once invited to the meeting and asked to begin your testimony, a timer will be started. We will monitor your remaining time throughout your testimony, and when there are 30 seconds remaining to your time, you will be reminded of this. Once your allotted time has passed, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. Shortly thereafter, you will be muted and disconnected from the remote meeting. I also reserve the right to limit the number of speakers where repetitious comments are being made on the same matter, which could affect callbacks for public comment at the meeting. Please be aware that this public meeting is being recorded. Because the meeting is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. With this in mind, I would now ask the Chief Clerk to please read the name of our first speaker.
Yes, Madam Chair. First speaker is Abram Ash, commenting on 200051 and 200176.
Good morning, Abram. Are you connected and ready to proceed? Good morning. Good morning. Are you connected? Mr. Decker, can you state that name again for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm being told he's not connected, Madam Chair. I apologize.
Okay, thank you very much. The next person?
The next person, give me 1 moment, Madam Chair.
Sure.
The first speaker is Regina Harrison, commenting on 200051A.
Good morning. Are you connected and ready to proceed, Ms. Hairston?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, I am.
Thank you so very much. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Regina A. Hairston, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of Philadelphia City Council. I am also the representative of the Diverse Chambers Coalition of Philadelphia, which was formed by the AACC, Asian American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Philadelphia, Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Independent Business Alliance, and the LGBTQ+ Chamber for Greater Philadelphia. And I'm here to provide public comment on Bill 220051-A. I thank the sponsor of this iteration of the bill, Councilmember Brooks, for instructing this council to further examine an issue that continues to plague our city. I understand that this council cares deeply about the safety of our communities and the impact that COVID-19 has had on our small business environment in Philadelphia. Therefore, it is imperative that we delay a final vote on this bill until a more effective and efficient strategy is established in order to provide further participation of small businesses. At a time when COVID-19 restrictions are being scaled back, our focus needs to be helping small businesses recover. Our small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and we must continue to reinvest and support them during this time of recovery. As the Diverse Chambers Coalition of Philadelphia stated before during the February 14th hearing, there has not been an adequate nor meaningful opportunity for those small businesses affected by this measure to discuss the impact of COVID-19 leave on its recovery. Even with the latest amendment, which raises the threshold to those with 25 to 49 employees, would affect nearly 2,800 local businesses that would now have another regulation which would act as a hurdle to surviving this recovery. As such, approximately 50 businesses met with Councilmember Brooks earlier this week, urging her to rescind this bill. Our businesses hardest hit by the pandemic cannot afford another barrier to doing business effectively in the city of Philadelphia. The goal should be centered on efforts to develop initiatives and legislation that will protect our workers, but will also leave the businesses that employ them in the best shape to scale and survive this recovery period. Hundreds of business owners have entrusted the organizations that make up the Diverse Chambers Coalition to be their voice. Our members constitute the backbone of the city's commercial corridors, the future of our economy, and they are a source of jobs and wealth creation in the neighborhoods that need it most. Failing to hear their voices to meet their needs undermines the strong and equitable, inclusive recovery that we all seek to achieve. With this in mind, I respectfully ask the council to delay taking a vote on this bill 220051-A until the small business community has a chance to have meaningful input in the process. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Hairston. Will the clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker, Madam Chair, is Queen Judith Robinson, commenting on 210848 and 210170.
Good morning, Queen. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
Good morning. Good morning. Queen Judith Robinson, testifying on 200170. If I could be so bodacious on Women's History Month, I'm going to give myself an award today. Queen of Citizenship. Yes, Judith Robinson, Queen of Citizenship. There is no citizen that has testified to this body more than Judith Robinson in the history of City Council. I'm going to call it modern history of City Council. So I'm going to give myself an award, citation, big up props, all that, because it's Women's History Month and we're celebrating women. And I just want to make myself very distinct in that manner. So, Queen of Citizenship to Judith Robinson of North Philadelphia. Yeah, welcome. In addition, another queen of the 5th District in North Central Philadelphia, Diana Montague. Black history. She's the owner of Iron Ladies Enterprise. You're talking about untraditional careers. She is the first woman iron worker in the history of iron workers to graduate as a union iron worker in Philadelphia's 100-year history. Say her name, Diana Montague. Happy Women's History, y'all. Let's get the history straight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Queen Judith Robinson, for your comments. Would the clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Susan Wendell, commenting on 210956.
Good morning, Susan Wendell. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
I am indeed.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Well, good morning. My name is Susan Wendell, and I'm testifying in support of Bill number 210956, which would establish a Philadelphia Public Financial Authority, the first step to creating a Philadelphia Public Bank. I am chair of the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition, and in this coalition, I represent Power Interfaith as well as Philadelphia Neighborhood Networks. And as a poet, as well as chair, I'm in charge of the poetry of public banking. So I'd like to offer a poem as my testimony today. The poetry of public banking. The poetry of public banking, the way the words kiss public and banking, it is not what you expect, this joining, this yoking together of seemingly separate, seemingly disparate things, public, banking. Here is a compound beauty, a deep underlying truth, public and banking, people and profits. Why not let the bankers belong to the people and the people the bankers in holy union? Here the heart sings a unifying song. Here the prophets themselves rejoice, and a new light beams, from the city of love. Council members, please pass this bill by unanimous consent. Help Philadelphia grow into the beacon of love and justice that is in her good name. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Would the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is David Backer, commenting on 210956.
Good morning, David Backer. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Just please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, your comments rather.
Thank you. Yes, my name is David Backer. I'm a professor of education policy at Westchester University. I live in West Philly. I'm a member of Philly DSA, and I'm a parent of a 2-year-old who will attend Philly public schools. As a scholar of school finance and a parent, I'm thrilled to support the creation of a Philadelphia Public Finance Authority. The connection between school finance and this authority might be a little obscure, so my testimony tries to make this clear. Philadelphia school buildings are in dire need of transformative financing. A public finance authority such as the one considered today would help. How? When the district does large projects on schools, it has to take out loans through a for-profit market called the municipal bond market. Getting one of these loans is like going to a big party. There's a lot of people there. There's the district, who needs money for things like school HVAC systems, but there are investors who might front money for this loan. There are consultants, lawyers, rating agencies, institutions helping make sure the deal is kosher, and the bank, who's like the party's host. At this municipal bond market party, everyone is there to make money, except the school district. Investors are there to make money on the loan's interest. Private banks are making bank. Consultants and lawyers are charging high fees. Even the credit rating agencies charge for their services. The district is like a nerd at a football team rager. School districts get taken advantage of in these situations. On average, municipal bonds are rated worse and incur higher fees than private ones because Securities and Exchange experts don't see public financial deals like school bonds as real business. They're not wrong. Education is a public good. It's supposed to serve everyone, not make the rich richer. So the school district gets ripped off by buildings. And maybe the host, the bank, notices this, but she's got all kinds of things going on, saying hi to everyone, not really looking out for the district. Now imagine the district has a wing person at this party. This friend is like a nerdy football player who has the respect of everyone but is there to advocate and protect the district. This person's goal is to make sure the nerd doesn't stand out and doesn't get ripped off. That friend is the Philadelphia Public Finance Authority. So I'm excited about this authority coming into existence in Philly, a city that's been pushed around and bullied enough when it comes to finance. Also, passing this legislation to create the authority step closer to creating a public bank, which would be like the school district going to a party hosted by their wing person, which would be amazing. I urge you all to vote in favor of that legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Backer, for your comments. Would the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Jumping to the top of the list, Madam Chair, we have Glenn Bryan commenting on 200155.
Thank you. Good morning, Glenn Bryan. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Thank you so very much. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Okay, my name is Glenn Bryan, and I am here to just provide testimony for the late, great, I call her Elsie Wise, community leader. And I'm merely here to really echo previous comments and commendations regarding the tireless work on the ground by our late, great, terrific community leader, Elsie Wise. I worked with her for about 3 decades and almost, and we applaud at the University of Pennsylvania to her work, and all of West Philadelphia, her work to provide quality of life improvements in her community, and to work with the youth that started the West Powelton Steppers, which are now the Sixers drum team, or I'm not quite sure the title of them, but the success of her work bringing youth in her community into productive activities was immeasurable. So I'd like to, the family, I wish the family, can continue prayers, and she will always be remembered and have a place in our heart, and has made an indelible impression for so many in West Philadelphia. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you so very much for your comments, Mr. Bryant. Are there any other speakers, Mr. Decker?
Many, Madam Chair. The next speaker is William Carter, commenting on 200051A.
Good morning, Mr. Carter. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
I am connected. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
William Carter, Vice President of Local Government Affairs for the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Madam Chair Parker and members of council, for allowing me to testify regarding Bill 220051. Let me first say, Regina A. Harrison of the African American Chamber hit the nail on the head. She was very succinct and eloquent with which she when she testified, and I just have to give kudos to her on that. Although we appreciate the sponsors' commitment to the safety of our community, I've been getting steady emails and calls that, as recently amended, this bill would still have a damaging impact on 3,000 hardworking small business owners and the jobs that come with them. As most of these businesses have been justifiably exempted from prior versions passed during the height of the pandemic, this bill, although I'm sure very well-meaning, has issues. But the primary one is the sponsor's lack of due diligence in this regard. In just over a month from introduction to hearing to now, the sponsor has raced this bill to final passage with extremely little conversation with stakeholders, extremely little consideration of the actual ramifications on the city as a whole, and with very little diligence. Speaking for the Chamber, who represents 1,700 businesses, the majority of which are small and mid-sized businesses, we were afforded 2 short Zoom calls, one on the Friday before the hearing with really no back and forth, and another with the diverse chambers in PRLA. And even those meetings were held at the behest of our organizations in the short amount of time provided. That's simply not diligence. As far as the bill as amended, it still adversely affects approximately 3,000 small businesses, still affected between 25 and 50 employees. Many have more than one location or more than one type of business. And it's clear this is not the same bill from 2020 that was enacted during the height of the emergency. Prior iterations of this policy either exempted small businesses of this size or acknowledged federal access to tax credits to help cover the costs. This legislation does neither. You can go up and down any commercial corridor in the city like I have, and I do on a weekly basis, and see once vibrant storefronts closed down. Each of those boarded up or empty establishments represent any number of jobs. I've heard the stories from proprietors and seen the locations that have endured 2 years of unimaginable hardship due to the pandemic. They are hopeful thanks to rising vaccination counts and decreasing counts of infected people that people will even come back and patronize them so they can recover, grow, and hire more employees. Particularly during this recovery period, in order to grow our economy, reduce poverty, maintain quality service, and make our city safer. Many of you know we have to grow jobs and businesses in Philadelphia. So we're once again thankful for council's commitment to the safety of our community. Please know that business owners are likewise committed and going to great lengths to ensure customer safety and confidence. However, Philadelphia's hardworking business owners are asking for your consideration and understanding of the current state of the city. Too many are leaving and taking the jobs with them. I worked in city council 16 years and can admit, I used to think that a lot of them were crying wolf, but I can assure you this is not the case. Therefore, we and other business chambers and organizations are kindly asking that this legislation either be tabled or amended to reflect these very real circumstances. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Would the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Nicole Levy, commenting on 210956.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. You are connected. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Levy. I'm in Councilmember Gautier's district. I'd like to thank Derek Green for his leadership and vision. I support the bill to create a Philadelphia Public Financial Authority to serve as a platform to the city as it reclaims ownership of its financial well-being. The Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, the first in a wave of financial civil rights legislation, which included the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, and the Community Reinvestment Act. Yet the racial wealth divide in this country has not budged an inch over the past 50 years. The financial system is broken, it is flawed, it is stacked against our communities. For the past 50 years, the financial system has focused exclusively on its own dumb biggering. Industry talks about the legacy of redlining while redlining huge swaths of our city every year. If Black home loan applicants were approved at the same rate as white home loan applicants, Philadelphia would have received an additional $62 million in home loan investment in 2020 alone. The numbers are even worse for small business lending. We must reclaim control over our own financial well-being, because here's what we need to realize. We may be tagged as America's poorest large city, but we are also wealthy beyond our imagination. Quarterly data published by the FDIC shows that we in Philadelphia have $607 billion sitting in the bank right now. At least 85% of that money is held by corporate entities that are not local to our city and are not the least bit aware of or concerned with our community needs. The business of banking is simple. Take money in and lend it out at interest to cover costs and earn profit. With our $607 billion, banks have invested just $17 billion in home lending and a negligible $308 million in small business loans in 2020. That is not prudent financial planning for our city. As a city, we've given our purse and our entire bank over to outsiders who have no vested interest in seeing us thrive. Reclaiming control over our finances, actually holding some of these numbers in our hand to take account of this city and its vast wealth, this is the starting point, the first step towards imagining and then realizing a prosperous future for all of Philadelphia's neighborhoods. Thank you for voting today to approve the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levy, for your comments. Chief Clerk, please read the name of our next speaker.
The next speaker, Madam Chair, is Erendira Zamacona Solano. Translating for Ms. Solano is Carly Porzand.
Thank you so very much. Good morning. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Hi, I'm Carly Porzant. Ede is going to be reading her testimony in Spanish, and I'll share her testimony in English afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Just please state her name for the record and proceed with the comments.
Thank you.
Hola, buenos días. Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Erendira Zamacona. Soy miembro del Comité de Trabajadores Inmigrantes y una organizadora con Alianza 215. Soy mamá de 3 hermosos hijos y fui trabajadora de restaurante por 14 años. Hoy represento a todos los trabajadores esenciales de la industria de restaurantes y les pido, queridos concejales, que aprueben la ley de licencia por enfermedad pagada de emergencia. Me tocó trabajar varias veces enferma. Nunca pude tener días pagados por enfermedad. pero sí tuve despido injusto por mi empleador. Recuerdo cuando uno de mis hijos se enfermó y no pude enviar a mi hijo enfermo a la escuela. Pedí permiso a mi empleador para ausentarme y cuidar de mi hijo enfermo. Y recuerdo con palabras claras del dueño, dijo, a mí no me importan tus problemas personales. El negocio no puede detenerse solo por tu ausencia. Si tú no te presentas a trabajar, ya no tendrás trabajo. Aún no olvido las palabras de mi empleador. Yo también escucho de compañeros y compañeras de trabajo del comité que han vivido lo mismo. Para nosotros las personas inmigrantes no contamos con beneficios, ni con seguro médico. Nosotros tenemos que sobrevivir al pago mínimo de $7.25. Nosotros necesitamos 2 trabajos porque los biles no esperan. Si ustedes, mis queridos concejales, nos apoyan y aprueban esta ley, nos sentiremos protegidos, valorados y respetados como trabajadores y seres humanos, y seres dignos de trabajar seguros, y poder cuidar de esta hermosa ciudad de Filadelfia. Ustedes son seres humanos tan valiosos como lo somos nosotros como personas esenciales. Confío en ustedes y en Dios y pongo mucha fe que no nos darán la espalda y nos apoyarán. Gracias.
Thank you.
Okay, I can read it in English.
Yes, please. And just for the benefit of the viewing public, along with our colleagues, because translation support was needed, we will sort of measure this as two commenters relative to time. So thank you all for your patience as it relates to the leeway being provided here. Please proceed.
Okay, thanks. Hello, good morning. My name is Erendira Zamacona. I'm a member of El Comité de Trabajadores and an organizer with 2 and 5 People's Alliance. I am the mother of 3 beautiful children, and I was a restaurant worker for 14 years. Today, I represent all essential workers in the restaurant industry and ask you, dear council members, to pass Emergency Paid Sick Leave Bill number 220051. I have had to work several times when I was sick. I was never able to have paid sick days, but I was wrongfully fired by my boss. I remember when one of my children was sick, I couldn't send him to school. I asked my boss for permission to be absent and take care of my sick son. And I clearly remember the owner saying, I don't care about your personal problems. The business can't stop just because of your absence. If you don't show up for work, you don't have a job anymore. I still haven't forgotten my boss's words. I also heard from my comrades at El Comité who have experienced the same thing. For us immigrants, we do not have benefits or medical insurance. We have to survive with the minimum payment of $7.25. We need 2 jobs because the bills don't stop. If you, my dear counselors, support us and approve this bill, we will feel protected, valued, and respected as workers and as human beings, and we will be worthy of working safely. And together, we can take care of this beautiful city of Philadelphia. You as human beings are as valuable as we are as essential workers. And I trust in you and in God, and I put a lot of faith that you will not turn your back on us and you will support us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Will the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Bennett Walker, commenting on 220051.
Good morning, Bennett. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Great. My name is Bennett Walker. I'm speaking in support of the COVID-19 Paid Sick Leave Bill number 220051. I'm a restaurant worker in the city of Philadelphia, and I was very, very excited to hear about the upcoming vote on Councilmember Brooks' Paid Sick Leave Bill in the City Council. So I'm coming from a place where one of my coworkers contracted COVID-19 during the beginning of the Omicron surge, and during this time, she did the right thing, and she contacted our fellow workers, management, told everyone that she had tested positive and that she had exposed a bunch of our coworkers. Management was completely indifferent to this and told everyone that they were supposed to come in, even though this was before Christmas, and they knew that many of us were about to go see our family, many of them elderly, many of them immunocompromised at various points of risk. And without comprehensive sick leave, we were unable to avoid the workplace for fear of losing our jobs entirely. Predictably, many employees came into work and later tested positive, and the virus ripped through our restaurant, at one point infecting nearly every manager at the same time. This bill is extremely important to me and my coworkers for a multitude of reasons. First, workers are human beings. I cannot believe that we've spent years talking about us as essential workers, as heroes, as this and that, and we are going to turn our backs on workers and deny them one of the most important, crucial things, paid sick leave. How are we going to go through 2 years of a pandemic and not award workers one of the most rudimentary benefits and protections against this virus? Secondly, sick leave is extremely important in restaurants specifically. We work in very small spaces. We don't want to be spreading germs and illness through the food that we serve to our customers or fellow coworkers. We should not have to choose between spreading sickness or our paychecks. Third, and most importantly, this bill is coming just in time when the vaccine and mask mandates have been lifted without input from workers who just last month were dealing with extremely high levels of a wildly contagious pathogen. This pandemic is still not over, and paid sick leave is one of the most effective ways that we can finally bring this pandemic to an end. It would make a world of difference to workers across the city. We are all expectantly watching these votes. Regardless of how the pandemic is forming and how it's moving, this pandemic has shown a light on the fact that workers need comprehensive paid sick leave. We need this very, very badly. Thank you to Councilmember Brooks for listening to the voices of workers across the city.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Will the Chief Clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Charlie Simpson, commenting on 220051.
Mr. Simpson, are you connected and ready to proceed?
I am. Hi.
Thank you so very much. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Hi, my name is Charlie Simpson, and I'm speaking in support of the COVID-19 paid sick leave bill, number 220051. I'm a restaurant worker in the city of Philadelphia. I was excited to hear about the upcoming vote on Councilmember Brooks' paid sick leave bill in the city council. In January, I was sick with COVID, and I notified my coworkers and managers on the same day that I tested positive, and I, of course, had to take over a week off of work. And at my restaurant, sick leave benefits are difficult to qualify for. My restaurant workers, many restaurant workers cannot afford to lose that amount of income. Predictably, many employees came into work and later tested positive around the same time, and a significant portion of the staff was infected. Working in the food industry is one of the most common jobs in Philadelphia, and this bill could help us on the front lines of COVID tremendously. Everyone gets sick. We deserve to have the support we need to afford life in a pandemic. Sick leave is extremely important in restaurants specifically. We handle food and things that everyone touches. We don't want to be spreading germs and illness to the food that we serve to customers or our fellow coworkers. We should not have to choose between getting sick or spreading sickness or getting paid. This bill is coming just in time when the vaccine, mask, and mandates have been lifted. The pandemic is still not over, and paid sick leave would make a world of difference to workers across the city. And we're all watching these votes. Thank you, Councilmember Brooks, for listening to the voices of the workers in the city.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Chief Clerk, can you please read the name of our next speaker?
Sarah Johnson, commenting on 220051.
Sarah Johnson,
Hi,
good
Sarah
morning.
Johnson.
Are you okay? You are connected and ready to proceed. So please just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Hello, my name is Sarah Johnson, and I was working within a Philadelphia restaurant until December of 2021. I'm speaking on behalf of the COVID-19 paid sick leave bill number 220051, and this is imperative during time that we're living through. While working at the restaurant, I saw so many examples of how workers' health, safety, and well-being were put at risk, both in relation to COVID and otherwise. In late December, our staff was hit with a wave of COVID that affected nearly everyone, most likely as a result of the company holiday party. And despite large numbers of the attendees testing positive, management was not empathetic. They're barely willing to accept that people need to quarantine. They were willing to cut corners in order to remain fully staffed over the holidays. And they did not tell workers to get tested, and they did not prioritize the health of workers or guests as a result. Besides COVID-related risks, the restaurant made it clear that they did not care about our needs or our safety otherwise. One of my coworkers was in a car accident last year, right at the beginning of his shift, and despite all of our coworkers pushing for him to be able to stay home and get rest, management forced him to come to work that day. Later that year, we had a flood in the restaurant where sewage backed up and the main floor was flooding and the kitchen was flooding, and they did not tell the guests, and workers still had to work through sewage conditions. And they were not willing to close down single day of business following that event despite the serious health hazards and consequences. Other than that, they were always very responsible in terms of staffing. They made workers who were part-time work nearly full-time hours. They were antagonistic when we weren't willing to work double shifts just because they weren't responsible and planning ahead for service. Restaurants make it clear that they only care about profit, even at the expense of the health and safety of their employees and their patrons. And motions like that of the paid sick leave bill are the only way to ensure that establishments are held accountable for treating their workers right. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Can you please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Jackie Wiggins.
Good morning. Are you connected and ready to proceed, Jackie Wiggins?
I'm ready to proceed.
Thank you. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Okay, my name is Jacqueline Wiggins, a senior citizen, community activist, and stadium stomper. I am providing testimony referencing Bill 220051 having to do with businesses providing paid sick leave for full and part-time workers. First of all, the COVID pandemic has not halted. People are still coming down with COVID, even though some people, based on their health status, may experience less severity. COVID cannot be treated lightly. The bill must pass, even though it has moved from providing paid leave to employers with 10 employees to 25 or more to assist an employee with self-care, care for family members suffering from COVID and must self-isolate, or provide care for a child or children if a school should close and there is no available child care, etc. This pandemic has dealt a crushing blow to every human being in this city and beyond. Those who have experienced COVID are human beings who come from families, and this includes business owners. Adjustments have to be made in families when a crisis or tragedy occurs. So too, with one of the foundations of our city and nation's economy, those in businesses. But no one understands this. Business owners come from families too. Imagine having a sick worker who may or may not know his or her status with respect to COVID encountering a senior citizen in the workplace like myself. I am vulnerable to that worker's unknown, possibly untreated, recovering inefficiently COVID situation. I need some assurances from business owners that my health will not be compromised nor endangered from a sick staff member. I understand that our city of Philadelphia is poverty. Can I continue? Could some of that poverty exist because of limited visioning on the part of our elected officials? What is the dilemma? If the usual statement is going to be that people don't understand business, newsflash. The people who make business work are people like myself and every other everyday tax-paying resident who purchase the goods and services for what they want and need because we, the people, make businesses work. Not providing paid sick leave to run the public is not good business. 51. Thank you.
You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Thank you so very much for your comments. Would the chief clerk please read the next name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Tarika Dixon, commenting on 20170.
Tarika Dixon, are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Yes, my name is Tarika Dixon, and I am here to support Women's History Month and it's resolution 220171. I am a glazer at District Council 21. I'm also a member of Women in Non-Traditional Trades, WINK, steering committee. And I am here just to speak on behalf of women being underrepresented in non-traditional careers. And I am here to just put the word out there and to let everyone know that we have to continue to get the word out there. We have to continue to support programs such as NAWIC and WIC, who are trying to get the message out there to get more women in the non-traditional trades. And I'm just committed and willing to do whatever I can to increase the advancement of women in non-traditional careers.
Thank you so very much. Are you, Tarika, that didn't conclude your comments, did it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure. I heard a pregnant pause. Okay, thank you so very much for your comments. Would the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Nicole Fuller, commenting on 220170.
Thank you, Nicole Fuller.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you. You are connected. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Comments.
My name is Nicole Fuller. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Area Project on Occupational Safety and Health, better known as Philippi. First, let me say good morning to City Council members and a special thank you to Council members Gilmore Richardson, Quinona Sanchez, and Council Chair Parker. I'm speaking in support of Resolution 220170 to recognize March 6th through the 13th of this year as Women in Construction Week and honoring women in non-traditional careers, better known as WINK. As one of the founding members of WINK, I am very, very proud of the work that we are doing in the city. Folks may not be aware that women represent such a small percentage of employees in industries such as construction, manufacturing, and transit. You have 3% of women in construction, 29% in manufacturing, but those jobs are usually the low-paid assembly work, and 2% in SEPTA, which is our, transit agency. These career pathways pay well, and they can provide financial security and a way for workers to take care of their families. Women are not getting a fair share of these opportunities. These industries have made up some progress in their outreach to women, but still these career pathways are often out of sight and out of reach and, out of mind. WINK has a very diverse steering committee that's very important to us. It includes local tradeswomen from SEPTA and the building trade, a manufacturing apprenticeship intermediary, a representative from the local Philadelphia AFL-CIO Council, Insulators Union, Workforce Board, and staff. Like I said, I'm very proud of us. We have accomplished a lot since 2018 when we were founded. You can find resources at our website, winkproject.org. We are very active on social media where we highlight local tradeswomen in the city of Philadelphia. I want to thank you this morning for allowing me to speak and appreciate every consideration you afford in adopting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Nicole Fuller, for your comments. Will our chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Karen Messino, commenting on 220170.
Karen Messino, are you connected and ready to proceed? Good morning.
She just dropped off the line, Madam Chair. The next speaker is Tanjan Hebron, commenting on 220170.
Hello.
Hi, Tanjan. Good morning. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Tanya Hebron. I am a first-class construction equipment operator with SEPTA for 28 and a half years. Also involved in the tradeswomen of SEPTA, and I'm on the steering committee of WINC, W-I-N-C, which stands for Women in Non-Traditional Careers. So I'm calling in for support of Resolution 220170 And I believe that, like Nicole Fuller said, we make up a small percentage when it comes to non-traditional careers, and we're trying to change that. We need more women in because we can do the work. We do it well, and we look good doing it. We need more support as far as training and programs. So I hope that with this bill, this resolution, it will put it out there that we need more women in non-traditional careers. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you so very much, Tanya, for your comments. Will the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Sue Hoffman, commenting on 220171.
Good morning, Sue Hoffman. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
I am, yes.
All right, state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Good morning. My name is Sue Hoffman. I'm the project manager for Women in Non-Traditional Careers, WINC, at Philadelphia Works. And I'm speaking in favor of Resolution 220170. I want to thank Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and the other sponsors for recognizing and honoring WINC through this resolution. Let me share with Council why Philadelphia Works agreed to incubate and grow WINC. As the city's workforce board, Philadelphia Works invests in training and partnerships that create pathways to family-sustaining careers, especially for folks who've been unemployed and underemployed. And this also meets the talents of local businesses. So, when tradeswomen and advocates came to Philadelphia Works with the idea of what became WINC in 2018, Philadelphia Works saw the potential and said yes. So over the past 3 years, Philadelphia Works has provided the staffing and the federal grant support to power WINC. But Philadelphia Works can't do it alone. Like Tarika, Nicole, and Tanya have also talked about, we have a diverse steering committee. We have a partnership among unions, employers, nonprofits, trainers, tradeswomen, which is also noted in the resolution. And as we grow and try to sustain our impact, WINC needs additional funding, additional partners, and additional getting the word out, additional outreach to make sure that even more women are able to thrive in a trades career. So I encourage everybody to find out more about WINC and how to get involved. You can visit our website at wincproject.org. That's WINC with a C, WINC project.org. And we appreciate the opportunity to be honored in this way during Women in Construction Week and Women's History Month. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue Hoffman, for your comments. Will the chief clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Michelle Paxton, commenting on 220171.
Michelle Paxton, good morning. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
State your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Paxton. I am the Vice President of the National Association of Women in Construction here in Philadelphia, chapter number 145. And I am also the Corporate Safety Director for Binsky & Snyder in Piscataway, New Jersey. So good morning, council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak in favor of Resolution 220170, which recognizes March 6th through the 13th, 2022, as Women in Construction Week and to honor the women in non-traditional careers. Promoting women in non-traditional careers is extremely important for the future of the trades within our great city of Philadelphia. We need more women and we need more support within the industry, as we are still unfortunately grossly underrepresented in all aspects of construction, transit, and other non-traditional careers. So I want to thank you, council members, and the sponsors of this resolution for your consideration, and this concludes my comments.
Thank you so very much, Michelle Paxton. Will we please read the name of our next speaker?
Eric Jenkins, commenting on 220176.
Good morning, Eric Jenkins. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes.
Then state your name for the record and proceed with your comments.
Okay. My name is Eric Jenkins. I'm a member of Socialist Alternative, and I'm here to support resolution number 220176. Starbucks workers and any barista workers attempt to unionize and launch workplace actions have my support. In Memphis, Tennessee, 7 Starbucks workers who were leading a unionization drive in their store were fired in retaliation for fighting back. Many of these workers were fired were black, and we shouldn't be surprised by this. Mega corporations like Starbucks test out their union busting tactics on black and brown working people first because they know they can get away with it. These 7 Starbucks workers in Memphis, the Memphis 7, still don't have their jobs back. Already we are seeing Starbucks export this tactic of unjustly firing leading Starbucks organizers from stores who declare to be unionizing. Recently, Starbucks unionization leader in Buffalo, New York was fired abruptly. We will definitely see more Starbucks stores try to fire more leading workers because they can afford to take measly penalties from the NLRB and want to start any movement toward building a union. This is an indictment of capitalist institutions and are always geared to covering for the bosses because even if workers get their jobs back, it usually takes years after the fact and the unionization drive has been severely weakened or crushed. Starbucks workers cannot rely on these institutions but they can use their own power as workers in conjunction with the larger Philadelphia working class. We know Philly is a union town with a predominantly black and brown population, and we know that black people are the most unionized racial demographic in the United States. The question is how the city council can support workers fighting back against union busting in the city that knows black liberation is tied to a revitalized labor movement. This resolution is a great first step. However, to have resolved is also can be concrete actions. We cannot wait till Philadelphia Starbucks workers is faced with the question of unionizing or losing their job. We must be prepared when Starbucks or any company bring their racist union busting tactics to this city, and we should be clear it will be devastating not only for all black and brown workers, but for all workers. We need community mobilizations led by unions, socialist organizations, progressive politicians that can empower Starbucks workers to lead a movement to win and build a dynamic labor movement that can launch unionization drives in every mega corporation in this city, including Comcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric Jenkins, for your comments. Can we please read the name of our next speaker?
Tony Abada, commenting on 220176.
Good morning, Tony Obata. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
State your name for the record and feel free to proceed with your comments.
My name is Tony Abada. I'm here to support resolution number 220176. I support Starbucks and barista workers organizing for a union here in Philly and across the world. I'm a union member and a rank and file shop steward for District 1199C. I'm here in a personal capacity and as a member of Socialist Alternative. The struggle of Starbucks workers and other barista workers is a struggle of all low-wage workers and part-time workers today. Just like Eric just highlighted, corporations like Starbucks make billions in profit right here in Philadelphia, while us workers struggle to keep up with rising rents, spiraling healthcare, and a lack of stable employment. Together, Starbucks and other industry workers can raise pay and also raise expectations about what work means today. These workers got together, they presented their demands, and they filed for a union vote. But let's be totally clear, this is only the beginning of the struggle. Starbucks will not voluntarily give up millions in profit. We saw the brutal and illegal union-busting tactics used against our siblings organizing at Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama, and in New York. And as Eric just highlighted, the firing of 7 Starbucks workers in Memphis. So the question really is, how do we win against these mega corporations with unlimited resources? We need a mass movement. We have to rely on our own power as workers. We have to share and take up winning tactics and strategy whenever possible. We have to expand this struggle to bring in our communities into this fight back, including our elected officials and the existing union movement. This is an incredibly important first step, this resolution, but it's only a beginning. We need our elected officials to do more to actively build support and bring a spotlight to retaliation against workers seeking a voice in the workplace. A win for Starbucks workers is a win for the working class here across Philadelphia. We know a rising tide lifts all boats. It's time to lift up the struggling Starbucks workers today and support this resolution.
Thank you, Tony Obata, for your comments. Can the Chief Clerk please read the name of our next speaker?
Lou O'Reilly, commenting on 220176.
Good morning, Lou O'Reilly. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Yes, I am. I'm Lou O'Reilly, speaking on resolution 220176. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Am I
You
good to
stated
proceed?
your name for the record. Just proceed. Yes.
Okay. I am a Starbucks barista working currently at 9th and South Street. We have, over the last 2 days, been having a series of captive audience sessions that can, at best, be described as anti-union conversations, and at worst, be described as a forced listening to anti-union propaganda that, in most cases, is misleading, at most generous. These sessions are frankly exhausting for the employees who are constantly having facts that we know and laws that we know we are supported by being outright lied about or misconstrued by Starbucks corporate. These union efforts have been led by our employees. It has been from the get-go by the workers because we have realized the flaws evident in Starbucks and our need to have a larger position at the bargaining table. And these intimidation tactics are a malice effort to attempt to dissolve our union before it's even begun. We are thankful for City Council for proposing a resolution to reinforce the backing that we know we have through our labor laws and hope for continued support from Council in the case that Starbucks commits any more further actions of blatant anti-union behavior. Thank you for your time, Chairman.
Thank you, Lou O'Reilly, for your comments today. Can we please read the name of our next speaker?
The next speaker is Sarah Giskin, commenting on 220176.
Sarah,
Hi,
good,
can you
good
hear me?
afternoon. Yes, we can hear you. You're connected. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your comments, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sarah Giskin, and I'm here to support resolution number 220176 to stand in solidarity with Starbucks workers organizing to form a union. I am a rank and file member of AFSCME DC 47 and also a member of Socialist Alternative. I'm speaking in a personal capacity today. So last year, Starbucks made $5 billion in profits and also raised their CEO's total compensation to over $20 million. All the while, workers who roast the beans, brew the coffee, work the register, interact with customers during a deadly pandemic, and do so much more, have been struggling to make ends meet. Their schedules are unpredictable, their wages stagnate, their healthcare coverage is expensive and insufficient, and for some reason they are not allowed to receive tips from credit card transactions. There are now over 100 Starbucks locations nationwide, including 4 in Philadelphia, that have publicly announced that they are joining the union, and it's awesome to have just heard from one of those workers today, Solidarity. And as a union member, I can say that this wave of organizing at Starbucks is the most significant development in the labor movement right now. There is huge energy in the working class rank and file across the country and potential to rebuild the strength of the labor movement and raise our collective expectations for what we can win beyond the limited vision of many labor leaders. If Starbucks workers win big, this will the impact will be electric across U.S. labor. All workers have a stake in this in every industry and every part of the country. And that's why Starbucks will ramp up their union busting relentlessly. Anti-union propaganda, captive audience meetings, and even illegal retaliatory firings like have happened in Memphis. So we must not underestimate them. And that's why City Council must stand unequivocally with these workers in their fight to make their work sustainable, dignified, and fairly compensated. Any elected official anywhere who claims to be pro-worker or pro-labor needs to do the same. It's a simple question. Which side are you on?
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your comments today. Mr. President.
Yes, Madam Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Passing the reins back to the press.
Duly accepted. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Leader. Mr. Decker, please read the next name.
The next speaker is Mary Adamson, commenting on 220176.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. State your name for the record. Please proceed.
Yep, it became afternoon. My name is Mary Adamson. I'm the president of the Temple University Hospital Nurses Association. We're a local of PASNAT in North Philadelphia, and we stand in solidarity with the workers who are fighting against Starbucks. Nurses are no strangers to the barista. We know them well. This is how we get through some of our long shifts. But we are in solidarity of these workers, particularly the ones that were fired in Memphis for organizing. We've passed a resolution at our local to stand in solidarity with Starbucks workers, and we also sent money to them to help with the workers that were fired. We call today on the whole labor movement in Philadelphia to do the same. And we asked City Council to pass this resolution to show Starbucks and the many corporations who believe in union busting that Philly is a union town and that we won't tolerate these tactics. Currently at Temple Hospital, we're dealing with the same thing, and we've had a long-standing union for many years. The Starbucks Workers Union Drive has the potential to be the next best step toward rebuilding a fighting labor movement in Philly and across the country. So we all have a huge stake in the success of the Starbucks workers. So please pass this resolution and stand with the workers of Philadelphia and across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Gail Loney, commenting on 220177.
Good afternoon. I'll state your name for the record. Please proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Gail Loney. I'm calling to support Resolution 220177 honoring Miss Jacqueline Wiggins. She is a woman who speaks truth to power. As you may have noticed, she was on today in support of the bill 220051. Miss Jackie, as we all know and love, is an unassuming gray-haired, caramel-colored black woman who is small-framed and well-groomed, but a powerhouse of a person. And I am pleased and honored to be able to talk about and have my friend held up and recognized during this Women's History Month, where she stands alongside people such as Ruth Wilson and Dr. Ethel Allen. She is a walking, talking activist leader who inspires and aspires us all, and is the voice of Black history, Black pride, Black women, and Black people. Jackie can tell you about the history of the country, the city, the neighborhoods, and especially North Philadelphia. She's a businesswoman who does tours through Wiggins Tours. She's a storyteller and a volunteer at Johnson House in Germantown, where she does programming for young people to learn about the Underground Railroad, to be forever connected to their history. She's a mentor to many, even though she may not know or realize, and donates to causes for youth. She volunteers her time and experience, her knowledge and her skill. She's a dynamic woman whose DNA is about teaching and learning in and outside the classroom. And I want to thank Kendra Brooks for lifting up Miss Jackie at a time when Black women need to be lifted up, when Black women have not always been shown in the best light. I'd like to thank Kendra for sharing that, learning those lessons, and picking up that torch. And this month of Women's History, your work to achieve racial equity around the elderly, housing, tenants' rights, and those are just a few of the things and causes that the city needs and has hungered for. And you have been the breath of fresh air that we have been waiting and craving for, to put ourselves and each other in these positions of service, is recognizing that we are our brother and sisters keepers, and each one teach one, lest we never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Loney. Thanks for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Milan Polite, commenting on 220183.
Good afternoon. State your name for the record. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Polite. I'm here for Resolution 220183. I am the proud mother of Dr. Elena McDonald and Delana Woodlaw. I'm here to express my feelings about the work they have done in the communities and how they have advocated to help with the COVID testing and vaccines, and how they volunteered their time endlessly trying to encourage and inform our communities and to make sure that young Black people are aware of what's going on with their medical health and what the knowledge of what's going on with COVID. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for producing two awesome women. Thank you for your family's contribution to the Strawberry Mansion community, starting over there on Diamond Street. So thank you. We really appreciate you.
The next speaker is Mr. Wardclaw, commenting on 220183.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I'm sorry.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry, good afternoon. My name is Khalil Wardlaw, and I am calling to support Resolution 220183 for the Twin Sister Docs. The Twin Sister Docs provide quality health care and address health disparities in underserved communities through a variety of platforms. They each deliver COVID awareness and access to their communities. Through their website, social media, and participation in various town hall meetings, they reach an untold number of residents. The Twin Sisters Docs also use their platform to spread knowledge through radio shows, clinics, and local charter schools, all while serving as mentors to the greater Philadelphia community. These two identical twins, Elena McDonald and Elena Wardlaw, are dedicated and thoughtful practitioners of medicine. They deserve recognition for their commitment to the Philadelphia community, and that concludes my support of their resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Romani Abney, commenting on 220183.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Romani Abney. I'm in support of Resolution 220183, Twin Sister Docs. When the pandemic hit the world, America, our state, our community, those in the underserved community knew we were in trouble. Where could we go? To whom could we turn? The answer was the Twin Sister Docs. We were able to get our vaccinations. We were able to get boosters. We were able to be tested. And our fears of being the last to be served were solved and remedied by the Twin Sister Docs and other doctors like them. These are beautiful women whom our community has given birth to, and thank God we were able to turn to our own for the help that our community truly needed. We were able to put our faith and our trust in them. They worked tirelessly in our community, leaving their own families home while they donned their protective gear to come and see that our community was not last on the list like we have historically been. So I want to thank them and thank their parents for having given birth and raised such beautiful people.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
We have no other speakers for public comment today, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. That concludes our public comment session for today, and we will now consider today's resolution consent agenda. I would ask the clerk, please read the titles of all the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda. After each title is read, any member may object to the inclusion of the resolution on the resolution consent agenda. Upon such an objection, without debate, the resolution will be immediately removed from the resolution consent agenda and placed on today's regular final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, can you please now read the titles of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda?
Resolution number 220169, entitled a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 809 West Firth Street and 2955 North 8th Street, located in the 5th Councilmanic District. And resolution number 220170, entitled the resolution declaring March 6 through 13, 2022, the Women's History Month as Women in Construction Week in the city of Philadelphia, and honoring women in non-traditional careers for the commitment to support, increase, and advance participation of women in construction, manufacturing, and transit careers in the Philadelphia region. And resolution number 220171, entitled the resolution honoring and congratulating Philadelphia native Arthur Art McNally for his career's outstanding impact on modern football officiating and his revolutionary induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as the first ever on-field official to be enshrined. And resolution number 220172, entitled the resolution recognizing and honoring former Philadelphia Eagles coach Richard Albert Dick Vermeil for his distinguished 15-year NFL coaching career and congratulating him on being inducted into the National Football Hall of Fame in 2022. And resolution number 220173, the resolution honoring the life and legacy of comedy legend Bob Saget, a Philadelphia native and Temple University graduate, on the occasion of his passing. And resolution number 220174, entitled the resolution recognizing Philadelphia's own DJ Diamond Cuts for his election as a co-host of the upcoming reboot of the seminal television program Yo! MTV Raps. And resolution number 220175, entitled a resolution recognizing Temple University James E. Beasley School of Law on the 125th anniversary of its founding. And resolution number 220176, entitled a resolution expressing the Philadelphia City Council's firm support for workers at Starbucks in Philadelphia who are attempting to form a union and urging Starbucks to accept card check neutrality. And resolution number 220177, entitled a resolution honoring the life, work, and accomplishments of Jackie Wiggins, whose dedication to serving, teaching, and advocating for marginalized populations has immeasurably strengthened Black communities and the city of Philadelphia as a whole. Resolution number 220180, entitled a resolution honoring and congratulating Champion of the Week and Black Business Crawl organization, the Philadelphia 76ers Buy Black program, and past recipients, Spurgo and Girl Contracting Incorporated. And resolution number 220181, entitled a resolution recognizing and honoring Michael J. Bradley Jr. as the Grand Marshal of the 250th Annual Philadelphia St. Patrick's Day Parade. And resolution number 220182, entitled a resolution honoring the Philadelphia Tennis Club for being the oldest Black-owned tennis club in the country. And resolution number 220183, entitled a resolution recognizing and honoring Dr. Delana Wardlaw and Dr. Elena McDonald, the twin sister docs, for their outstanding contributions to the city of Philadelphia and crucial leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. And resolution number 220184, entitled a resolution recognizing and celebrating March 6th as Lithuanian Independence Day in the city of Philadelphia.
Did it?
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion to adopt each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, and each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda have been adopted. We will now consider the bills and resolutions on the regular second reading and final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 220178.
A resolution honoring the life and work of Reverend Dr. Evelyn C. Graves for her lifetime of dedication to community activism and innovation in the creative and performing arts through the founding and leadership of Evelyn Graves Ministries.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to make a few brief remarks first.
Sure.
Good afternoon, council colleagues and everyone tuning in from home. Last week, I introduced a resolution honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Evelyn Graves, a spiritual and community leader who passed away on January 30th of this year. Dr. Graves spent more than 50 years providing creative and performing arts opportunities to both youth and adults in West and Southwest Philadelphia as the leader of Evelyn Graves Productions, a multidisciplinary theater company. Over the years, Evelyn Graves Productions has traveled the world, presenting spiritually and culturally relevant shows, many of which Dr. Graves wrote himself, to a variety of audiences. For decades, Evelyn Graves Ministries Church has provided a place for people to gather as a community, and the almost 40 faith-based programs founded by Dr. Graves have created a rich legacy of activism, empowerment, creativity, and mentorship. These efforts have provided spiritual enrichment, arts, education, childcare, and employment opportunities to more than 500,000 underserved families and will continue to do so for decades to come. This is not the first time Dr. Graves has been honored by this council body for her lifetime of achievement and service to our city. In 2015, 5400 Chester Avenue and the 1400 and 1500 blocks of South 55th Street were named as Dr. Evelyn Graves Way as a token of recognition for her service, and it is my honor to introduce this resolution in honor of the legacy she leaves behind. Dr. Graves' death marks the passing of a spiritual giant and humanitarian, but her lifetime of work is truly a gift that will continue to enrich the residents of our city for many years to come. My sincerest condolences go out to Dr. Graves' family. We are all so grateful for all of the incredible work she's done to better our city. And with that, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. All in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of Bill number 210956A.
An ordinance signifying the intention of the City of Philadelphia to organize the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority pursuant to authority established under state law and amending chapters 2600, Standards of Conduct and Ethics, 1200, Lobbying, and 1400, Non-Competitively Bid Contracts, Financial Assistance of the Philadelphia Code to address ethics, contractual, and other requirements applicable to the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority.
This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Aye.
Councilman Dom.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gautier.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gim.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Jones.
Aye.
Councilman O.
Aye.
Councilman O'Neill.
Nay.
Councilwoman Parker.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilman Squilla is voting aye. Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 15, the nays are 1. Majority of all members present have been voting in the affirmative. The bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title of Bill number 220051A.
An ordinance amending Section 94116 of the Philadelphia Code entitled 2021 Public Health Emergency Leave to establish additional leave time under certain circumstance, modifying existing provisions concerning the paid sick leave and make technical changes.
Thank you.
Council President,
Chair.
I have point of information.
Okay. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. First, I'd like to thank the sponsor, Councilmember Brooks, who joined me and Councilmember Dom on Tuesday, I believe, where we were with the SBA Administrator, Isabella Guzman, as well as Mark Morial and Andrea Custis, both from the Urban League. And we learned some interesting data in reference to small businesses, the fact that 40% of small businesses, especially in the African-American community.
Councilman, can you hold on one second? So you wanted a point of information, but Councilwoman Brooks and Dom wanted to speak on the bill. Just want to make sure.
I understand. I'm got to give you my point of information.
All right. Thank you, Council.
Understand. And so we learned that a number of businesses, and I was saying 40% across the nation and 41% here in the city of Philadelphia, African-American businesses were lost during the pandemic. And it's based in that context, wanted to follow up on my point from last week, where Councilmember Brooks stated in this body, she would meet with small business owners and also provide data in reference to how she came up with 25 employee threshold. My understanding is she met with some small businesses, and I want to get some perspective on that. And I also have a question about the data.
Oh, well, thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks for response and then subsequently to speak on behalf of the bill, as you earlier referenced.
So after the hearing, I did take a deep dive with small businesses with a particular focus on small Black and brown owned businesses in the city. So I amended the bill last week to increase the employer size to businesses to 25 or more employees for the following reasons. According to our own Commerce Department data, which was pulled from the U.S. Bureau of Census 2019 County Business Pattern Report, approximately 85% of Philadelphia's businesses have 25 employees, fewer than 25 employees, and are exempt from the COVID-19 leave legislation. And additionally, the average business size citywide is 22 employees and would be excluded under this amended definition. And if we were to increase the thresholds to businesses with 50 or more employees, a mere 6% of Philadelphia businesses would be covered by this legislation. And then back on the data around Black and owned businesses, I evaluated the data that was available, and on average, Black and brown businesses owned businesses in the city would be excluded from this legislation based on the current 25 or more employee threshold. In Philadelphia, Black-owned businesses employ 10.3 employees on average. Asian-owned businesses employ 5.1 employees. Hispanic-owned businesses employ 7.6 employees. And this information came from the 2017 Bureau of Labor Statistics data presented to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development on October 6 of 2020 by Center City District. And based on that data, the average Black and brown owned businesses would be excluded under the original bill. But I am willing to amend the bill further out of the abundance of caution to encompass more smaller Black and owned businesses. And for weeks now, I've been hearing from businesses about their concerns. And my team and I have consulted with business owners, the diverse chambers, and available data. And I'm confident that this bill as amended will not adversely impact Philadelphia businesses. But we cannot make policy system decisions based on the desire for just one group of stakeholders. And I also talked to dozens of workers, union members, advocates who were adversely affected by previous iterations of this bill lapsing during the dire periods of the pandemic. And I feel like we can't leave workers out in the cold again. And that's why I'm confident that this bill balances the need to protect workers and create reasonable expectations for businesses.
Council President, I have a follow-up on my point of information.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Green.
Yes, I guess my question was, I did receive some additional data last night at 7 p.m.
Nope. You got the information at 11:53 a.m. yesterday. It was sent to both of you and Councilmember Dom.
If I could finish what I was saying, I said I received some additional information regarding the question that Councilwoman Sanchez had in reference to the data, in reference to the 3,000 businesses that are concerned, asking about data by sector. And in that additional information I received at 7 p.m., for those 3,000 businesses, 642 are in hospitality and food services, 520 are in healthcare and social areas, as well as 418 in retail trade. I guess my question is, did this information go to all council members, especially district council members who have a lot of small businesses on their commercial charters? Because that was one of the things that was stated last week. You were provided data regarding this information.
The individual data was sent originally to the council members that requested it by information. The additional information was followed up and sent to other council members last evening.
Okay, so I just had a question because last week you said you would meet with the small business group, which sounds like you did on Tuesday, but then you also would not call us up until you provide the data. Just wanted to make sure that all members of council received the data.
All members of council that specifically requested the data received it earlier than the other members of council that were included in this vote, and everyone received it last night.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman, did you had earlier requested to be able to speak?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Council President. You know, I want to thank my colleagues and the many workers and labor leaders and business owners, the diverse Chamber of Commerce for their feedback and collaboration on this bill. I'm confident that this bill in its current form represents the best interests of workers and business owners alike and will allow our city to move forward into the next phase of living safely in this pandemic together. And I want to acknowledge that the pandemic is unpredictable. 2 previous iterations of this bill provided critical protections for workers. However, each of them lasts, leaving workers vulnerable to the spikes of the highly contagious Delta and Omicron variants. With the city dropping the vaccine and mask mandates, the onus is on us now to protect our workers, their families, and the public from the spread of COVID-19. Reestablishing adequate paid sick leave is a key strategy to giving workers the confidence they need to continue to come to work every day. And it's critical in giving the public a peace of mind that sick workers aren't coming in because they can't afford to stay home. And again, I want to thank the many people who provided their input on this bill. And I want to thank my council colleagues for co-sponsoring this legislation. Council members Parker, Squilla, Bass, Gautier, Gilmore Richardson, Gim, and Thomas. Thank you, Council President, for your time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President. And I want to explain my vote on this bill. And, you know, yesterday the city of Philadelphia lifted its mask mandate, which really signals the pandemic has subsided and conditions have improved dramatically. So with regards to Bill number 22005A, the Public Health Emergency Bill, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you, Council Member Kendra Brooks, for the spirit of this legislation and its positive impact during the hardest moments of this pandemic. I'm in favor of providing leave options for employees managing COVID for a while longer, but it's the technical aspects of this bill that make it extremely difficult for small, medium-sized businesses and nonprofits who have already barely survived this pandemic to recover fully. Many of them have loans they've taken out and will be paying back for 2 to 5 years. When this legislation was originally enacted, there was PPP money available, and there was federal tax credits available to help small businesses and the nonprofits stay alive and continue to employ many of our residents in the city of Philadelphia. Right now, as we consider this legislation's extension to not the end of this year, but December 31 of 2023, almost 2 years from now, we are expecting these same small businesses and nonprofits who have had no time to fully recover to manage a large cost burden without any federal, state, or local financial supports. As I've expressed to the bill sponsor, I'm willing to compromise, but I will not put our small businesses and nonprofits in such a precarious financial situation as this bill does in its current form. I've requested we apply this legislation to employers with greater than 50 employees and allow it to sunset the end of this year. Should we see spikes in our COVID cases or new variants come this fall, I'm sure this legislative body is willing to reassess the situation then. In speaking with our local small businesses and nonprofits who employ so many of our local residents, and in speaking with the Diverse Chambers Coalition, made up of all our minority chambers of commerce, they all have concerns and oppose this bill. Philadelphia is on the brink of recovery, the brink. And this legislation will be yet another reason why employers will choose to either leave the city or locate elsewhere. I've said it many times in this body, Philadelphia does not exist on an island. And the more we head in that direction, the more our local economy will suffer and our residents in the long run will suffer from a lack of opportunity. For all these reasons, Council President, I'll be voting no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I have heard from the four diverse Chamber of Commerce today. One spoke on their behalf. I have received the letters. I suppose other council members have. But the other chambers of commerce are very clear that they oppose this bill any less than 50 and anything in terms of timing that is not corresponding to the state's determination, and certainly not more than a year. I think when I look at the fact that the national average for job loss is 2.6%, compared to Philadelphia, which is 7.6%, and the fact that it mainly affects lower wage jobs, which is down 37%. And in 2020, this city lost 62,800 jobs. And it appears that between 11,000 and 19,000 jobs will not come back because these are remote workers. They're not coming back to this city. This is from the Pew report that has been referenced by this body on a number of occasions. One of the problems that we're facing, and I know that this problem about paid sick leave is a very important problem as well, but one is that the lack of employers. And the lack of employers that start their own businesses in the communities where there is a lack of opportunity. It is the fact that they have an ability to be their own boss, to hire their family and friends and neighbors, to hope to not only feed their families, but to expand and hopefully one day be prosperous. That has been on decline in this city since the 1960s. There are less and less independently owned, particularly African-American businesses in this city. And I believe that the voice of those representatives of the small business community is very important. When I'm in doubt about things, I consider who testified for the bill and who testified against the bill. And sometimes no one testifies against the bill that I actually, quite frankly, am not clear that I would support, but no one testified against it. This is a different matter. I've found, quite frankly, that oftentimes business does not speak up. So the fact that these four business chambers and others have been very clear in their opposition, I find a very important consideration. And for that reason, I too will vote against the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green. You referenced the point of information again, or you just want to tee up to speak?
Well, it is a point of information to Councilmember Brooks.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I guess my last point of information for Councilmember Brooks is that in your meeting, which I think is about 47 small businesses that met with you this week, and based on the data that you provided to myself and some council members, about 2,800 establishments will be impacted by this legislation. And I just want to get understanding is that your thoughts is that by meeting with that group this week, that's an adequate outreach to businesses that will be impacted by this legislation.
Well, the meeting I had this week, I actually requested the meeting based on the conversation that we had at the chambers. It was their responsibility to bring small businesses to that table. My staff took detailed notes and information around the data that we received, both in the chat and in the conversation. And we also followed up individually with each business owner that was on that call. Based on the data that I received and the questions that I asked in relation to this bill, I still felt it was important for me to move forward as is, as amended today on this bill.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a quick question. My question was to the sponsor. Thank you for all your work on this. And I know you've really been out here working hard on it. But I do have a concern that just came up. Does every member of council have the same information, the same updated information about this bill?
They should. Everyone received the same information yesterday.
Okay, so everyone has the same information?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Jones, would you still like to speak? Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you. I have I'm joined by out-of-town students, so they're getting to an opportunity to hear and experience democracy at its best. I just want to put on the record a couple of things, put in context, and then I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote on this bill. Not that it will determine the outcome one way or the other, but I want it on the record that there are certain corridors in the city of Philadelphia that have not recovered from the pandemic, have not recovered from the civil unrest. I can ride down those corridors and 20 or so %, Councilman, President, we always talk about, have not come back and are not coming back. They either took that money from the insurance and ran, or they just were underinsured and couldn't build back. I want us to remember this, because all too often, as we start to move forward with good intentions, as a body, we don't understand the impact, or we aren't feeling the impact of some of the people that represent small business community, particularly Black and brown businesses. We, this week, Mr. President, instituted a $2,000 assessment on businesses so that they could continue outdoor eateries. $2,000 on top of. And one of my businesses said to me, well, you know, it's like we went through the plague, we went through flooding up with the hurricanes, and here you go again. And I look them in the face, and it's hard sometimes to say that we don't come off as anti-small business. I'm going to tell you now, because my colleague is right next door, and I'm going to vote for this bill. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to vote for this bill. But what I'm going to require is that in upcoming legislation and opportunities that we fight just as hard for small businesses as we do for their workers, because one without the other just doesn't work. If you give the worker all these opportunities, but the business closes its doors, what's the point? And so I remember going back to paid sick leave with people like former council member Greenlee, who fought for these kinds of things. He was one of the original folk that fought for these kinds of things. But we, as a body, have to do things with balance. We got to understand that there's an intended and unintended consequences to our action. So I'm going to err on the side of this bill and pushing it forward. But believe this, I'm going to speak out in the future when we disproportionately impact stakeholders that are vital to the infrastructure of our city. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
I wanted to thank the bill sponsor for her hard work, not only on this version of the bill, but on staying on this issue throughout the pandemic, which, is now going into the third year, and making sure that workers are protected. And, I want to echo Councilmember Jones's point. He was the first person in this conversation that I heard make the point that there are two sides to this, right? There are businesses, small businesses, and there are workers. And for much of this conversation, we've been talking about our concern for the business community, which I understand, without any mention that businesses do not exist in a vacuum. Businesses need people to drive them forward. And if those people cannot keep themselves and their families safe, then businesses will not prosper. And so that needs to be always, just as we've talked a lot about the chamber. We've talked a lot about the diverse chamber. I understand their place in this conversation, but the people, many of them who are also Black and brown, matter. And I would challenge, Councilmember Brooks, she's been challenged a lot during this discussion on the importance of her meeting with the chamber and the businesses. And I would just ask anyone who's voting no to consider, is it also important to meet with workers? Is it also important to have conversations with people who are directly impacted? Do you all think that that's just as important as meeting with the business community? Because I do. Because I think that their voices deserve to be heard in this discussion too. And I would just say again that many of those people are also Black and brown.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I wasn't going to speak again, but I thought it was important based on the fact that there was assumption that just because I talk up for small businesses, I don't also talk for workers. I have voted for every paid sick leave bill that has come up in this body, even though that was concerning to some in the business community. My concern is this bill at this level. When the African American Chamber, Hispanic Chamber, and the Asian Chamber step up and say their members are saying this is impacting them, and I know that they are business owners, but also they have relationships with their employees. They're concerned not only about the future of their business, they're also concerned about their employees and having a business to employ them. So I understand the issue and the concern in making sure that everyone is safe, but we also need to make sure, as Councilman Jones, and as I've also often stated, because I've talked to both small business owners and individuals, that we need to make sure that we're looking at this in a collective perspective. And so the assumption that because I articulate issues regarding Black and brown businesses, and I'm not talking specifically about individuals, is too often that the African American businesses are not spoken up for, because many of them are running their business and don't have the chance to come to a council meeting or testify in stated meetings. And so that's why I speak up for those who are not being spoken up for, which is often happen in this conversation and a lot of conversations in the public sector. Thank you, Council President.
Clear, I didn't make an assumption. I talked about what I heard.
Okay, let's not make it personal. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Yeah, thank you very much, Council President. I don't take it personally. I think it's a very legitimate question. Where is the consideration of workers, and the consideration is there. And I will say that their place of employment, many of them have closed, and they don't have a job, and they can't go to some of the other places and get a job. Employment in the neighborhood, in the community, or an opportunity downtown, it's very important. And so I think, as was said, they go hand in hand. There needs to be an opportunity for small businesses to get started, to grow, to provide services in a community where often services are lacking, with an understanding of the needs of the community by people from the community or who employ people in the community. I think that's important. I will also note, as Councilman Derek Green noted, that I introduced a bill and it was passed by this council and signed by the mayor at the outbreak of COVID to protect healthcare workers in a manner that does not sunset that does protect them. And in the past council sessions, we have fought for the employment of workers and union members in the healthcare industry, in the manufacturing industry, and continue to do so. And with Council Member Curtis Jones, with his efforts in international investment and opportunities, long history. And particularly on my part, for those interested in the creative arts economy and how important that is. But there's a point where those efforts have to turn into a sustainable method of employment. They want to create a business. They want to see it grow. They need to hire people, and they need to be prosperous in order to do that. So I think that is the balance, and I think that is there. I will say again, I do think that this is a bad time to do it for the reasons that I stated in terms of the numbers, and I think that is a balancing act, and so that issue of the workers is very important, and I want to ensure that they have jobs, and they may one day themselves start their own business after having that experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make a suggestion. I did reach out to the bill sponsor and ask if it was a possibility, particularly on the sunset provision, if it was possible that if numbers continue to drop at a rate in which they're dropping right now in terms of COVID and the need for having this piece of legislation, if there was a willingness to basically do another bill to address ending the sunset a whole lot sooner than what is being suggested now. And the bill sponsor, Councilwoman Brooks, is, from my understanding from our conversation, our dialogue, is certainly willing to do that. So I just really wanted to thank her for being open and, willing to compromise. I really do like to always give all of my colleagues the benefit of the doubt that we can always try to work something out. One of the problems I think with government is where we see something is not working or it's not working as intended and we don't address it. We don't step in. We don't use the tools that we have to make things better when we can. And I think that her willingness to make the change regarding the sunset is a big step forward, and I really do appreciate that. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge her willingness to compromise in this matter and thank her for that effort. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Brooks, did you want you're good? Okay,
I'm good.
All right. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. And actually, Councilwoman Bass covered a little bit around, legislation is always fluid. This notion that, what we do today can't be modified or amended as we move forward. And I appreciate that she highlighted that the bill sponsor is willing to entertain that. I strongly advocated to the bill sponsor to go to 25, understanding the reality of, immigrant businesses and some of the commercial corridors, and also understanding that you're not going to cover everyone. Would the bill be better at 50? Probably for many folks, especially the 2,800 businesses. Would it be better at 2022? Yes, but what we do in this legislative body, and we did it when we first did sick leave back, as Councilmember Jones was talking about with Greenlee, that was very tough. It took us several years to get to a consensus around that, and it wasn't a consensus that everybody was happy about. So I appreciate my colleagues, the ones who are voting no, because they stand by their conviction and their position, and I appreciate the colleagues who may not be comfortable with this compromise and are voting yes. But what we're doing today is not the end of a conversation about how we treat workers and how we treat businesses. It's an ongoing conversation and a constant push and pull, and so we should continue to have these discussions. It's going to come up in our budget, how we support both of these sectors, and I want everybody to be as passionate in that conversation as we move forward, and hope that, again, as we recover, if things change, as data analysis change, that this bill sponsor and other bills that we have on the table, whether it's the streetery debate that we'll have and some others that we weigh both of those options and try to make the best decision with the information we have when we make those decisions. So thank you, everyone. Again, as someone who, has been in constant communication with the bill sponsor and some of my colleagues, I'll be voting yes for this bill. And hopefully we'll continue to do the advocacy, particularly with the ethnic chambers of commerce who we work with every day. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be brief. When Councilman Jones mentioned a business in his district, the gentleman I think who has a restaurant, I thought of the fact that it's unfortunate we can't categorize these bills by industry, because clearly technology and law and other life sciences did very well during the pandemic. But the industries that got crushed were hospitality. They got crushed. Restaurants, hotels. And I can tell you that I'm aware of 3 restaurants in the city right now. One has 1 location, one has 4 locations, another one has 3, all seeking loans from $200,000 to $1 million to keep their businesses going. I'm just going to say that this is just a tough time for hospitality. It's a shame we can't separate it. But on the hospitality side, they've been crushed by this pandemic. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman O, did you wish to be recognized again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, we're ready to vote. I think we have all made up our minds. I'm simply going to state that when a bill passes, when it's signed, people make decisions. They may not be here 6 months later or a year later when something is amended or reintroduced. The law that is passed today is what causes people to make decisions about tomorrow, and that is the issue that we're facing right now. But, I appreciate the discussion. I think everybody has their reasons, and, we're going to take a vote. As is said often, that's democracy in action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, Mr. Decker, just read the title again since it's been a while. People may forget what we're going to vote on.
Bill number 220051A, entitled an ordinance amending section 94116 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled 2021 Public Health Emergency Leave, to establish additional leave time under certain circumstances, modify existing provisions concerning the paid sick leave, and making technical changes.
Thank you. This bill having been read on 2 different days. The question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Bass.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Aye.
Councilman Dom.
Nay.
Councilwoman Gautier.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Nay.
Councilwoman Gim.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Jones.
Aye.
Councilman O.
Nay.
Councilman O'Neill.
Nay.
Councilwoman Parker.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilman Squilla is voting aye. Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 12, nays are 4. Majority of the members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, do you have any additional resolutions?
I do, Mr. President. A resolution authorizing City Council's Committee on Streets and Services and Committee on Global Opportunities and the Creative Innovative Economy to hold hearings on the administration's plan for public electric vehicle charging, introduced today by Councilman O.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Yes, Council President, may I be heard on this resolution before we do the motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Council President, we had extensive hearings on this. It was very controversial. We had a lot of testimony, several bills introduced, and then we were working with the administration. The administration was very good about meeting all sides. At the end of it all, we were supposed to have a plan for public access high-speed charging. And we were in that, and it has been a while. Perhaps it's COVID. But I am not aware of any effort to implement a plan, and I'd like to see where we are as my co-sponsor, Councilman Mark Squilla. It's a lot of effort, a lot of bills, dealing with a system that everyone agreed was not sustainable. Well, almost everyone, just a few people. And so we need a sustainable system. We need public access. We need the bills and authorizations to make this happen. And so I look forward to having this hearing so we can see where we are. And I will note that this has now become, at the time it was an unpopular thing we were doing, but now it has become a very popular thing, with even the president in his address talking about the need for this infrastructure. So with that, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That completes our calendar for today. I see a note here that said we're not having any speeches today. Well, can't get away with that, huh? Okay. Any speeches on behalf of the minority?
I'll keep it short.
This real quick. This one is for the record. For the record, at the time, we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized in order to comply with the Sunshine Act. That chat feature must be only used for that particular purpose. And with that, speeches on behalf of the minority.
Thank you, Council President. I first want to thank Councilmember Gim for co-introducing the resolution with me, expressing firm support for the Starbucks stores in Philadelphia attempting to organize a union. Philly is a union town, and we know that workers coming together for the collective good is the only way that we can build safe, equitable, dignified workplaces. I am so impressed with the many young people who are coming together to build power and organize their workplaces and demand fair treatment. And I urge Starbucks to refrain from retaliation and to accept card check neutrality. As a person who came into politics out of organizing, my community, these young people are an inspiration, and City Council stands in solidarity with you. Today, Council voted to pass my final installation in my Black History Month series honoring prolific Black Philadelphia women. And I'm so proud to honor my friend, community member, and trailblazer, Miss Jackie Wiggins. Honoring Jackie, especially to me, because I've seen firsthand how she lifts up other Black women and strengthens communities and pushes the narrative forward. You can see this with her activism around the Stadium Stompers, which helped prevent further encroachment of a football stadium by Temple University into North Philadelphia. And you can see this with her work to create enrichment programs called the Underground Railroad Camps for children, youth, and families. And you can see this in the way that she called today, not to take credit for her work, but to advocate for workers who are in need of paid sick leave. For decades, she has been a relentless advocate for Philadelphia Black community. And she does not work for fame or credit, but because she believes in doing the right thing. And I also want to thank Ms. Gail Looney for her beautiful and powerful testimony, highlighting Jackie's legacy and ongoing leadership. So today we recognize her for her dedication to serving, teaching, and advocating for marginalized populations. Thank you so much, Ms. Jackie. And I want to give a shout out to the twin sister docs, my doctor, specifically Dr. Delano Warlaw, and her sister, Alana McDonald. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Speech on behalf of the majority, Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. At this point, good afternoon. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that today is the day that the driving equality law will essentially be implemented. And for us, as members of council, I think this is something that we should be extremely proud of. We do all know that there is a lawsuit that's pending, that's taking place. I'm not going to talk too much about that because we don't want to have that type of public quarrel. That's what the courts are for. But we are optimistic that we will be able to withstand that lawsuit. For me and for my colleagues who can relate to what it means to drive around the city of Philadelphia and experience some of the different things that take place when you're just trying to get from one place to another, and you're a law-abiding citizen. Sometimes those things don't always go our way, as been a color when we are pulled over by law enforcement. It was an honor for me to wake up today to text messages from folks all across the city of Philadelphia. But I think what resonated with me the most was hearing from the English teacher at Frankfort High School who's been teaching driving equality to his class and talking to them about me being an alumni of Frankfort High School and the work that we've been doing in this legislative body, not just representing Frankfort High School, but the entire city of Philadelphia. So it's an honor to be able to see this day. In 2020, people literally set this city on fire and set other cities all across the country on fire because they wanted to see some level of change as it relates to how communities of color were policed and the relationships between communities of color and law enforcement. I'm honored to be a part of the process that is spearheading that conversation, whereas though today in Philadelphia, we've answered that call. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Council President, for allowing me to make some brief remarks today. And thank you to the young people all across the city of Philadelphia, but especially the young people at Frankfort High School who are studying driving equality and who are looking to explore this legislation and ensure that is a part of their academic journey. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. Earlier in council, I mentioned a panel that occurred on Monday with the SBA Administrator, Isabella Guzman, as well as Mark Morial, former mayor of New Orleans, current president CEO of the National Urban League, as well as Andrea Custis from the Urban League of Philadelphia. I was joined by council members Dom and Brooks, and it was focusing on the Community Navigator pilot program to help small businesses, especially Black and brown businesses in the city of Philadelphia and around the country. During that panel, there were a number of African-American business owners that were there, and the consistent issue that we heard from those business owners and also reiterated by both Andrea Custis and Mark Morial and SBA Administrator Guzman is that the lack of access to credit has been an issue and why they have not been able to grow. We know in our city with a 44% African-American population that only 6% of the businesses with employees in our city are owned by African-Americans. And from the Latin diaspora, 15% population, but only 4% of the businesses with employees are owned by our brothers and sisters in the Latin diaspora. And we know this is an issue in our city, especially during the pandemic, how the fact that the economic calamity of COVID-19 decimated Black and brown businesses. Not only have not had the challenge to stay alive, but they've had the challenge to thrive because of the lack of access to credit. And it's based on that issue, plus my past experience from working with, my former boss, Councilmember Marion Tasco, on the anti-predatory lending bill, to my first job as a small business lender with Meridian Bank at Broad and Glenwood, why I moved forward on this idea of a public banking initiative. And with the first step of that initiative, which was the legislation that was passed today, the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority. I want to thank all of my colleagues who attended a number of hearings, received a lot of emails and information regarding this issue over the years. This has been a large coalition that helped all of us get to this point. And I just want to thank some of the members of that coalition from the Philadelphia Banking Coalition, Stan Shapiro, Peter Winslow, Susan Wendell, Tim Brown, Vanessa Lowe, and all of the members of that coalition. Andrea Schlesinger from HRNA and all of her team who helped us from the very beginning on the first study regarding public banking some years ago. My staff, Frank Iannuzzi, Kyra Harris, Dwayne Terry, and all of my staff who've really been involved in helping us to get to this point. The team from Howland and Knight, Kwamina Williford, Lynn Bernstein, Charlie Stutz, Kara Ward, and all the attorneys at Howland and Knight who've been our outside counsel helping us to get to this point. The City Law Department from Dan Cantu Hertzler, Valerie Robinson, Louis Rossman, the Treasurer's Office from Treasurer Jackie Dunn, and all of the staff from both the law and also the Treasurer's Office that helped us in this legislation, as well as others from the Pennsylvania Public Banking Coalition and the National Public Banking Institute. I just want to thank all of them for working and spending a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of treasure to help us get to this point, this first step. Now, as we go into the budget process, we'll call on the mayor to make the appointments for this new authority and also fund this new authority so we can move forward and provide access to credit for those many businesses that we need to grow and thrive in our city. So that way we can reduce the 25% poverty rate, which also impacts the public safety that we have in the city to allow those small businesses to provide jobs to make our city more safe and have a more thriving and growing city. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Here recognize Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. The state court ruled against our lost and stolen gun law. 3-panel judge stood up and said that this law, our ordinance, would impede upon the Second Amendment rights of Pennsylvanians. When you sent me up there, Mr. President, to represent City Council, and I want to thank the City Solicitor's Office for valiantly representing our position, I could tell when I left that court what that verdict was going to be, because the view of the world that they have is not the world that you and I have to experience every day in neighborhoods in Philadelphia. Lost and stolen guns. If you lose a cell phone, you report it. If you lose or a car is stolen, you report it. But yet, when it comes to firearms, which are potentially fatal, that's doing too much. The other day, tragically, a 12-year-old was shot dead by a Philadelphia police officer. I'm not going to weigh into how that happened, but the one fact that I do know is that gun that young man had was stolen. When we look at the 100-shooter review, we realize that many of the people that are pulling those triggers do so with stolen guns, straw purchased guns. The person that the court case for lost and stolen appealed admitted that he had purchased 5 guns, straw purchase, gave them to other people. 2 of them wound up in shootings in Philadelphia. Lost and stolen. My colleagues and I, Member Johnson, Member Isaiah Thomas, Mayor Gutierrez, Member Gutierrez, Member Brooks, all of us went down to the crime lab. And from ceiling to floor, there was nothing but, in 5 rooms, guns that were used in the commission of a crime, many of whom were stolen. It is wrong for members at the Commonwealth level to look at Philadelphia, point their finger and say, tis, 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 look what's going on in Philly with all these murders. Yet, when it comes to common sense gun legislation, they fight it. When it comes to looking at the location where crimes occur and illegal gambling machines, nope, can't do that. So it's like fighting a fight with your hands tied behind your back and then being accused of not doing enough by the people that tied your hands. So we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep getting sued. And we're going to keep trying to protect the citizens of Philadelphia. But I am perplexed how they can confuse the protecting the rights of hunters versus safeguarding the citizens from people that are hunting them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. And again, thank you for going to Harrisburg to represent the council in an extremely uphill battle. But at the end of the day, like the citizens of Ukraine, they won't give up, we won't give up. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you so much, Council President and colleagues. You know, obviously, as we witness the horrors of war on the international stage, we are all held to account for the horrors happening here in our own city. Yesterday, our colleague, Councilmember Johnson, held a key hearing in the Special Committee on Gun Violence on the state of mental health of children and young people here in the city of Philadelphia. And there's no question that the testimony that we're hearing indicates that we have to change the way we work and allocate resources here in the city. The levels of young people suffering from depression, the levels of young people not only contemplating but acting on suicidal ideation, the percentages of children, Black and brown girls and boys, whose statistics are literally through the roof on crises of isolation, of fears, of deprivation, and of institutions falling apart. You know, last year, the council, our Committee on Children and Youth, released a youth-powered anti-violence agenda that listed a number of priorities around mental health responses that were desperately needed with regard to gun violence prevention and intervention. And these came directly from the perspectives and recommendations that were put forward by young people themselves who had been directly involved in addressing gun violence. And I will say, again, as we know, at every roundtable discussion and every meeting that we had with young leaders and at every town hall that we hosted, the lack of access to trauma-focused therapeutic services was always one of the highest priorities, and the absolute kind of collapsing of what used to be standard institutions, including our public schools, has been felt extremely deeply. I can't underscore enough the damage that is happening when we have over 300 teacher vacancies currently in the school district of Philadelphia. Those are empty seats right now. And that, on top of that, gets layered your common absences, people calling out because they're sick or they've got other things that have to be dealt with in an emergency. There are almost 1,000 substitute calls every single day in the school district of Philadelphia. That is thousands and thousands of children who do not have a teacher in the classroom. I talked to one individual who's doing substituting because that's one of the requirements that that 440 has, and landed at an elementary school in the Northeast where the children had not had a teacher since November. And there will be a substitute every single day for that 8th grade class until the end of the year. We are missing counselors and nurses, social workers. We're talking about a crisis within our pipeline. So I say all this because we have choices that we have to make with this budget session. We have a library system where the majority of libraries aren't even open 5 days a week, and none are open on the weekends. Not a single one. We've got parks and rec centers that are still below their budgeted allocated amounts. We've got children, and at the other end of it, I'll never forget, you know, in August, before the school year started, they held summer school. It was entirely voluntary for high school students. You didn't have to go. It was not mandated. And I went up to Fells High School to visit one of these summer schools. Do you know how many children showed up on that very first day? 1,700 high school students showed up voluntarily for a 4 to 6 week program to get them back. Our children want supports. They are ready and hungry for action, and we have to deliver. We have to deliver more than we ever thought that we had to do, and this is not a temporary thing, because I do believe the gun violence numbers ultimately will go down. But it's not what happens when the numbers go down. It is that we have to fundamentally shift our resources into healing and, like almost repenting for what we have done to a generation of children for years to come, that we cannot ever fall down on delivery of resources to our schools, to supporting programs, sports leagues, after-school opportunities, guaranteed employment for young people for years going forward, if we're even ever going to have a shot at overcoming what has happened over the last 2 years and potentially for this year as well. So I look forward to doing that with us. I'm obviously wrecked by, a 12-year-old and just constantly hearing news of shootings outside of schools and children being desperately asking for help. But my commitment is for what we can do for this budget session and beyond, and keeping our city deeply committed to a generation of young people who watch every single step that we do and ask every single day whether they will ever be seen or heard. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It appears to be all of the speeches on behalf of the minority and majority. So at this point, here recognizes Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 10 a.m. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you all very much. Motion carries. Again, be safe. God bless you.